I worked for the Ford Foundation for 20 years, and I've always looked for the yes solutions. So often you have some problem that looks absolutely intractable, and yet somewhere in it there is a yes, a way to move beyond the acrimonious debates and make something actually happen that changes the world and changes people's lives in ways that you think are for the better.
And certification to me was the first tool I'd seen in my 20-some years working in this arena that offered an opportunity to change the debate. It was really, I think, probably the last 30 years, people fought each other bitterly. From an industry mindset, environmental interests shut down timber sales and disrupt flow of business. For environmentalists, if you were the industry, you were the enemy. Certification offered an opportunity to change the dialogue to a constructive or positive approach that brought people around the table that were looking for common solutions.
We were the first organization to do forestry certification in the world. In 1989, this is really a new model for nonprofits, for environmental groups to develop environmentally based businesses, and certification allows us to go in as independent auditors and assess how well people are managing their forests. And our goal is to make sure that there are forests, working forests in the future, so that this is really a long-term process. As we were doing certifications and forestry assessments around the world, we realized that there was really a need to develop an international standard.
The Forest Stewardship Council, which happens to be in Oaxaca, Mexico, is the nonprofit organization that sets the standards for the best level of forest management worldwide. The Forest Stewardship Council accredits certifying organizations. If these certifying organizations can verify that forest land is being managed so that you can have sustainable harvesting out of that forest essentially forever, then owners get a certificate which entitles them to put the Forest Stewardship Council logo on the products.
So what had happened was that certification was beginning to spread in places like Indonesia and Brazil and a few places in Africa, where European countries were importing their wood from. And consumers were very concerned about this old growth, rainforest type wood appearing in their stores. And that resulted in companies being willing to commit to buying as much certified wood as they could.
We have found that the major forest products companies selling directly to consumers in England, in Germany, in Sweden, in the Netherlands, now have all committed to using, as quickly as they can get the supply, only FSC certified forest products. This protects them against the possibility of criticism. It also gives them a market edge. It also is something that their employees really like, and it's something that the boards of directors of firms can associate themselves very positively with.
I had actually watched some of that development when I was in the Philippines and Indonesia, and nothing much was happening in the United States. So I began working with rural communities in forested areas. I watched what they were inventing. It's been my style with programming. I don't invent these things myself. I sort of follow behind some of the best of the people that we're supporting through our grants. One of the things that many of the groups were experimenting with was something that they called certification. So when the people from the Smartwood organization, which was under the Rainforest Alliance, came to me and said they would like to start a network of organizations in the United States who were interested in certification, and they named all the ones I'd already been working with, plus a few others. I said, that sounds great. And it looked like a real winner. So without hesitation, I said, yes, I will fund your initial meeting. Right away, it was clear to me, this is going to be big if it goes, and it's going to outstrip the resources of the Ford Foundation. And I brought another funder with me. So we attended this meeting together and basically were observers. And at that meeting, the fellow from the Pew Charitable Trusts asked the group, do you plan this certification movement to be a boutique effort. That is, you're going to appeal to a small but select market, or are you going to try to influence the mainstream of the way timber is harvested in this country? Great question. And the group contemplated that, and there was an extended discussion, and they said, we're going for the big one. So it was then that it was clear that, wow, this is a $50 billion industry, and this group of rather frail and tiny nonprofits is going to try to move that Queen Mary. Then the Pew Fellow and I both knew, okay, we're going to need other partners in this because this is a huge endeavor. At the same time that I was pursuing this interest in certification kind of from the ground with these nonprofit organizations working in rural communities, Mike Northrup got interested in certification from a demand standpoint. So there was something called a buyer's group in England, and Mike Northrup knew about that, and he began to think, wouldn't it be great if we could have one of those in the United States? So he and I began to talk.
In 1994, a small group of foundations began meeting in New York to learn about this strange and new concept of sustainable forestry. We gathered informally on 4 or 5 occasions. We began to talk about the possibility of a significant global change in forestry practices.
So here were a bunch of funders, and then there were these resource consultants, and then there were some companies who were talking about doing this, and you really began to get the sense of, oh my God, this is happening. It can begin to happen on a larger scale. We just might be able to change this industry. As the momentum for this set of ideas began to grow, people began to see the opportunities for funding.
We didn't have the institutions that we needed. We started talking about the need to create a Forest Stewardship Council office in the United States with the help of Michael Jenkins at the MacArthur Foundation. And that was in, I think it was 1994 when those first conversations happened. And as we got deeper into the issue, we thought that there needed to be similar institutions working on corporate demand. And it took us almost 3 years, ultimately, between early 1994 and late 1996 to help birth an institution. It's now called the Certified Forest Products Council, led by David Ford.
We create awareness and education in the marketplace. So our idea is to go out and identify some of these key businesses, and certification is a very tangible thing that we can point to. We work with them to develop purchasing policies, action plans to implement those policies. So if Home Depot is looking for certified product in a particular arena, we know the right places to go look to help facilitate. And we try to connect those dots, as we like to say, from the forest floor to the living room floor.
And as you look around the FSC certification landscape in the United States today, there are 10, maybe 15 institutions that the foundation community actually went out and catalyzed, either strengthened in some key way or provided funding to hire a dedicated staff person.
Michael really was the kind of lead convener, and that was very important to have somebody who was willing to take on that role. Michael would always do a memo right after a meeting and begin to delineate task forces that were tailored to